Welcome back to the In Between Overs podcast. We're your host of Days Play. I'm Taran.
Taran and Ishaan.
And don't forget to subscribe and like the channel.
So the group stages of the T20 World Cup have come to a conclusion. There is a dead rubber tomorrow between Australia and Oman, but we can talk about that later and the implications of that, if any. As the group stages come to an end, India conclude their group stage matches with a pretty resounding win against the Netherlands. I don't think there's too many surprises there. Abhishek Sharma with a third duck, though, so that'll be interesting to unpack. But a lot of exciting results. The Super Eights are something that definitely we're going to be unpacking as well. A lot going on there. But Tron, how do you feel about the group stages ending and India obviously ending on a high?
Well, I'll start with the India versus Netherlands game. Walk in the park again for India. Challenged the batting a little bit. Got the lower middle order got some batting practice. Shivam Dubey especially, and then the bowlers had a field day. I think the scorecard makes it look makes the game look closer than it actually was. I think Netherlands were able to score some runs towards the end there as India were trying out different options. Overall, I think they were able to flex a little bit and give everyone a go, get some time in the middle. Even Washi Sundar played the game and got some game time, which will be valuable in the Super 8 stage. So all in all, I think India checked all the boxes in the group stage for sure.
Yeah, no, it does seem that the right players are firing, the right cylinders at the right time. Shout out to quickly. I know you mentioned him earlier, Shivam Dubey. You're right. If you look at the score, it kind of doesn't really properly indicate how the match was. Shivam Dubey's innings really made the difference at the end there, and he kind of has always done that. He knows his role, he does his job, so it's good to see that he's sort of getting that recognition as well. Because obviously now he's getting an opportunity. Abhishek Sharma, third duck in a row. Any comments there? Is there time to panic? He has not, the number one T20 batter, has not scored a run in the T20 World Cup.
That is insane. It feels like it's the story of this game. Abhishek Sharma getting out for a third duck in a row. But we've said it before on this podcast, law of numbers, law of averages catches up to you in one way or the other. And I think we're in for a big one at some stage from Abhishek Sharma. Yet to light up the World Cup, but I think it's coming. It's coming. You just got to stay patient. There's been talk about, oh, should be worried about his form? I don't think so. I think he just needs to give himself a little more time in the middle before hitting. I know he's been doing his thing for the last year or so where he's just trying to hit the boulders right away, and it's worked. Right now, it's not working, so maybe he needs to change something and maybe give himself some time, play out a few balls, maybe get to double figures, or at least get off the mark, and then go for it.
Yeah, no, it definitely seems he's excited. I think now the tactics have shifted to opening up a bowling option against him. So we'll see how he definitely, combats that. But I do expect him to play. I think everyone is expecting to play in the Super 8s. It's just a matter of him turning up, really. So India batted to a total of 196. How did you think India's defensive position was in terms of their bowling attack? They obviously played seven bowlers, inclusive of Abhishek Sharma, but all the way from Arshdeep Singh to Shivam Dubey and Washington Sundar got some overs as well. What were your thoughts on India's bowling attack?
I think when you have Jasprit Bumrah and Varun Chakravarti in the attack, you always have a go-to person. And so it just felt like when Netherlands could get on top, could put on some sort of partnership, you just go to Jasprit Bumrah, just go to Varun Chakravarti, and they'll eke out a wicket or two or three, like Varun did in the game. And I think when you have those two, it's going to be extremely hard for a lot of teams to score runs against, isolate their performance. 6 overs, 31 runs, and 4 wickets between the two of them. Like, that's extraordinary. And then the rest of the attack just has to bowl around them, really. And as long as they hold their lengths, hold their lines, the wickets will come because the batters cannot go after Bumrah and Chakravarti. So they have to go against everybody else. So I think it's just a matter of just doing the basics right. And the wickets are there for the taking, I feel.
No, you're exactly right. If Varun doesn't get you, Bumrah don't get you, Pandya will because you're trying a shot against Pandya, for example, right? It's just the nature of the game. I think the tactic should be trying to take down one of India's premium bowlers, as you mentioned, either a Varun or a Bumrah. I think that's probably the best we can get to counterattack against India's bowling options. But just with one, the plethora of spinners they have, inclusive of the all-rounders, and when you have Arshdeep, when you have Bumrah, and when you have Siraj as well on the bench, you have skillful bowlers, red ball playing bowlers. I know Arshdeep is not a red ball player, but he has that skill set, especially in the T20 format. So it is a lot of uphill battles for batting oppositions against India. So again, I was not too surprised here. It was obviously Netherlands an associate team. And again, we will talk about the associate nations shortly as well and their performance this World Cup thus far, but it was just a little too much for Netherlands today.
Yeah, they tried with the bat as well. They lot of batters got starts, some good shots, some sixes, but no one was able to last long enough against this attack. And it showed, the gap showed. But hey, they still fought. They scored 176 runs. I would still take that as an associate team. I think that's an amazing score against the might of India. And that's a great segue into the associates, all the associate teams that played this World Cup. This was the first World Cup where I don't think we got a blowout game. You could argue and say that today's game, not today's game, sorry, one of the games, I think it was Canada versus South Africa, where it wasn't even close. The scores were not even close.
Mhm.
But for the most part, the associate teams, what we did not see a score where the full strength non-associate teams, the full strength teams, whatever you want to call them, the test playing nations. It wasn't a score where they scored a 200 plus or 250 type score and then the associate got rolled over for 50 or 60. Even if there was a 200 plus scores, the associate team still crossed 100 for the most part. And they scored like a 150 or 160, or like Netherlands, where chasing almost 200, they scored 176, right? So that was good to see. And we saw some good individual performances as well. We got to give a shout out to our fellow Canadian 19-year-old Yuvraj Samra with 100 against New Zealand, not an associate team. He scored 100 against full-fledged bowling attack that included Matt Henry, Kyle Jamieson, Jimmy Neesham, and there were a couple others, Jacob Duffy as well, who's been
Yeah, yeah.
doing well as a bowler. Great innings by him. There were some other individual performances. I can remember the Italian brothers, the openers, putting together a 100 plus partnership to win their first game. There were standout performances by I believe it was I can't remember the name. Nepal. It was Nepal. I forget the name, but it was Nepal where they ran England close. They almost pulled off an upset against England. That was an extremely fun game to watch. And then we saw, of course, Afghanistan. You could argue they're a test playing nation, but that game against South Africa where they took it to two super overs was also an amazing watch.
Yeah, no, and I'm glad we're getting an opportunity to talk about the associate nations. Firstly, Brampton native, great century, great to see as well, 19-year-old, and you hope now. And I hope before as well, he was getting interest from leagues across the world and then hopefully an IPL team as well. Because, having a left-hander opener, especially the way that he was batting and only 19 years of age against, as you mentioned, a full test playing nation, it says a lot, right? And they're playing in Chennai, so it's a subcontinent wicket. So he should be able to play in a league like the IPL. It just goes to show that, this tournament is even if your team may not be the best or the most favored to win, you still have something to play for, and that's a contract or that's a opportunity to make, as you mentioned, his hobby into a career. So it's good to see that there is that motivation there in a sport like cricket now, something that we probably couldn't say maybe 20, 30 years ago, right? So that's a big thing I think we got to shout out. And I know you mentioned a bunch of associate nations. One quick add as well, USA. Specifically, USA giving India a run for their money. We know last tournament as
Yes.
well, USA, I think they beat Pakistan in the Super Over, and then this tournament as well, giving a few countries a run for their money. So it's nice to see that even in the Western Hemisphere, the game is growing.
Yeah, you made a good point. This is the Associate Nations Super Bowl, right? To put an analogy to it. It doesn't get bigger than this for them. They get to showcase their skills on the big stage in front of millions of people in the stadiums, across the stadiums that they play at, and on TV across the world, right? And they don't get this type of stage to perform. And yes, I truly believe this is their chance to showcase the skills so that they can um, get the attention of the scouts for the leagues that happen around the world. Now there are so many leagues where these players actually have a shot at getting an opportunity, maybe not at the IPL, but maybe at some of the other leagues like the ILT20 or the CPL in the Caribbean or the SAT20 or some of the leagues in Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, Pakistan, or even some of the lesser known leagues coming out. I think Zimbabwe is coming out with a league as well. These are opportunities for players to make a living out of the sport, and they get to showcase what they do. No better place than a World Cup.
Yeah, I think that's a great analogy. It's the World Cup for the associate nations, especially. So it's no great to see. And as much as we gave the associate nations their accolades, it is unfortunate to say that none of them made the Super Eights, but they all played really, really great. Shifting gears now to looking ahead at the Super Eights, one quick, easy observation that everyone will make. You have all the teams that placed number one in one group, and you have all the teams that didn't in the second group. I know that's, a combination of preceding and whatever the ICC has going on, but interesting groups. What was your first reaction to that?
Man, I don't even get me started on the preceding. I still have no idea. My dad was trying to explain to me. Apparently, it had to do with the rankings, and they assume certain teams are gonna make it. And there's one team that's glaringly missing from the Super Eight, sorry, and it's Australia. Australia's not even playing the Super Eights. We'll talk about that, but yeah, it's interesting how they do the preceding. I think it has to do with where the games are going to be held because of the fact the political drama between India and Pakistan. I feel like that has some impact on it. But it kind of it is stupid for lack of a better word because they doesn't give any incentive to finish top of the group in the group stage. You just got to finish top two, and then your seeding is already determined no matter where you finish. So I don't know how much I like that. I think every group game should always be competitive, and it was right till the end. But I think there should be even more incentive to finish top of the group.
Yeah, no, there has to be an incentive. We see that in the leagues as well, like in the IPL. If you finish top of the IPL, you get another opportunity to go to the final, right? So there should be some sort of way that's baked into this. And we know ICC/BCCI is not shy of changing their methodologies or changing the way they look at groups. So just, they definitely, I think, got pushback this year as well with this preceding nonsense. So I hope that they change as well because you just have to have a consistent framework used for everyone, right?
Yeah, for example, if you look at Zimbabwe, like they've done phenomenally well to finish top of the table in their group, but they get put in with all the other number ones, as you said, India, South Africa, West Indies. And if you look at the two groups, if I was Zimbabwe, I would take Group Two over Group One. I think Zimbabwe would have a better shot in Group Two with the teams playing there than in Group One. But them winning all the games meant nothing really. They just had to win enough to get to the next round, and it didn't matter whether they finished top or bottom because their seed was determined.
Yeah, no, I agree. So interesting sort of preceding format there. Australia, shocking as well. Do you see changes in Australia from captaincy perspective, or you see them riding the ship until maybe the next World Cup?
This is a big wake up call for Australia. I was talking about it with my dad as well. I was listening to TGC podcast. That's the Great Cricketer podcast. If you're not checking them out, check them out. There has been a massive focus on test and one days with the Australian team and just Australian cricket in general. That's always been their focus. And right from the start, TGC, they did a great job of talking about how when T20 first started, Australia looked at it as a joke. They didn't really give it too much focus and attention. And then it turned into this thing where it became, they started making World Cups out of T20s. Now you're talking about leagues all over the world. And Australia have just kind of like always look at T20 as the number three in all the formats, where all the other teams, associate included, and associates maybe is not a good comparison because they only have T20s, they have nothing else, so they have to give focus to this because there's no other option for them.
It's your
But
money.
if you look at the other test playing nations, they give T20 a good amount of focus. India, obviously, and you look at the teams that they put out. The teams that they put out, a lot of the players are T20 specialists, right? And a lot of the test playing nations, New Zealand, South Africa, and a lot of the players play in their own leagues. And that is something that Australia doesn't do, where the Australian players, the top level players, I'm talking Cummins, Stark, Hazelwood, Lyon, they don't necessarily play the Big Bash League because they're so focused on their test summer, like when they play the Ashes or when there's other international fixtures going on. That's where their focus lies. And so be it. That's great. Have that focus, but then you're gonna lose somewhere. And I think we're seeing that in the T20 format, where I think the TGC team had said that in all the World Cups, Australia have only made the finals twice, and they won in UAE, and they won UAE mainly. Well, I should say mainly, but they had big help in winning every single toss as well in that World Cup. That makes a huge difference, especially when you play in the UAE where there's a lot to do. So I think they have some thinking to do with regards to how they approach the T20 game. We can talk about players. There's some players I want to single out, but I'll give you a chance to share.
No, no, no. I think you raised such great points. And if I could just double click on one point, as you mentioned, the focus on on the test format, I totally agree. And I actually really do like that because, again, as we mentioned on this podcast before, we love test cricket. We love what we call the pinnacle of sport. But what the harsh reality that I think that you're alluding to as well is that Cricket Australia needs to realize that both Test cricket and T20 have to run in parallel. The format you can maybe give up on is ODIs, which India has kind of really done, right? ODI cricket is sort of in the background, and Test and T20 is the forefront, right? You have the Ranji Trophy helping out with the Test, and you have the T20 setup helping out with the T20 players. Now, on the unfortunate part is that for Australia, the Test summer is literally during and preceding the BBL. So from a scheduling standpoint, because the BCCI has a little bit more power, they can't have too much of the BPL overlap in different months. So it is unfortunate, and I agree with you. You need a strong domestic T20 format, especially to uncover players. So it is something that Cricket Australia just has to look again at the drawing board. Do you look to maybe persuade the IPL to increase the number of Australian players? Do you look to have, for example, Indian IPL ownership in the BBL? Does that help with some of the player development, right? So there's a lot of questions for Cricket Australia. And now going back to the specific team now, not Cricket Australia, I definitely think some players will need to change in the squad, as we've seen in other T20 squads across the world as well, especially India.
Yeah, and speaking of players, Cameron Green, I think the writing's on the wall, at least in the interim for him. He hasn't been doing well in any format for Australia, and I think he needs a break. I think he needs to figure himself out. Again, the TGC guys spoke well about this, and I agree with them. I think he needs to figure out what he's good at, because right now it feels like Australia is trying to accommodate him in teams and trying to fit him into spots rather than playing him as per his strengths. But I don't think Cameron Green even knows what his strengths are. He's an amazing player. He's got amazing stats in the domestic circuit in any format. But for some reason, he hasn't been able to convert it into big runs and wickets for Team Australia. Another point on Cameron Green is he is an all rounder, which in itself is extremely hard to be extremely good at two skills. Add to the fact that he's an all format player for Australia. That is a huge burden because every format requires you to play differently in each skill set. And it's not easy. I'm sure it's not easy to switch formats from tests to one days to T20 back and forth, back and forth. with the ball in hand and the bat in hand, right? And the thing that makes it extremely tough, and I feel that now this I'm talking in general now, I feel we're going to see more and more players specialize in certain formats rather than playing all formats because it's not easy anymore, especially given the fact that players around the world in any country playing cricket now, they especially if you look okay, if you look at T20, associate teams are focused on T20. There are some associate players that have a really good T20 game, right? And they're playing franchise leagues all over the world. So that makes it tough for a test playing player that plays all formats to be extremely good in say T when he also has to be good in tests and wonders. Because think about from a practice standpoint, this player has to practice for tests, wonders, and T20 when you have other players around the world practicing only T20 all year round. They have a higher likelihood to be good at T20. You see what I mean? So I think that's going to play into the game a lot more as we go forward here with the game. But tying back to Cameron Green, I think he needs to figure out what type of player he wants to be. Does he just want to focus on test one days, T20, two of the three, just one? He got to figure out. I don't think he can be an all format player. And I think if he is, I don't think he can do both disciplines. I think he's got to focus on one discipline. But that's just my opinion. I think he's got to figure it out for himself.
I agree. I agree. Quickly on Cam Green, I think he's a test player. I think plain and simple, he looks and feels like a test player. I think he tried the T20 format. He was in the IPL here and there. I think if he was going to click, he would have clicked already in the T20 format. But I think he is definitely going through a lean patch, especially if you look at sort of the Ashes that just passed. But I do think that he is the present and future all rounder for Test cricket in Team Australia. He just looks good in gully, right? And then he has, those big mitts and he's able to, like play the Australian way. So I think he should take a break, but focus on Shield cricket and, the test squad. And to your point on, having specialty players, I totally agree. I totally agree. You kind of seeing that how, things have progressed now with players, for example, like Nicholas Puran, right? So players are actively making that decision and you will get those exceptional players who could give you everything in every format, i.e., the Jadejas, Ben Stokes at one point, right? But you're more likely will get the Hardik Pandyas, where you have an all rounder, but he'll probably stick with one or two formats, and that's it, just because of the toll it takes on your body, especially with the cricket calendar. This time around. So no, I totally agree. I think you're going to see less and less of those like couple day type players who would just make a squad in any sort of format, any sort of country. And now teams are going to be definitely selective in sort of who they bring to different tournaments and different formats.
Coming back to Australia, I think this their performance has been so shocking from the perspective of the games that they lost, both Sri Lanka and Zimbabwe. First off, you can't be losing to Zimbabwe. You just can't. I don't care what you say. You can lose to Sri Lanka in Sri Lanka. I'll give you that. You cannot be losing to Zimbabwe. But what's shocking is how they lost. Both the games, the Australian bowling attack was able to take 4 wickets across both games. 4 wickets. And both the games, the batting lineups got bowled out. Both the games. That is extremely rare in Australian cricket to see that kind of dominance from the opposition. Generally, when you think about Australia losing, you're talking a tight game. You're talking nail-biting finish. You're talking someone stood up and took the game away. But you're talking about blowouts here. You're talking about Zimbabwe scoring 150 odd, an amazing game plan to get there, and then bowling discipline, length, and lines to their batters, having proper plans against each batters, getting the right bowlers on for each batter, and just completely outplaying Australia in that game. Then you move into playing Sri Lanka, must-win game. Australia get off to a fantastic start, and then just lost their way in the back 10 overs, couldn't play the spin, couldn't play the pace bowling towards the back end, and just couldn't get any lift off the ground. And they kind of made their way to 180 just because they had such a great start. And then Pathum Nisanga comes out along with Kusal Mendes and absolutely flays the Australian attack all across the park. Some of the shots that Nissanka played were insane.
No, Nisanka is a class player. But now going back to Australia though, no, I completely agree. And I think, and this may be a hot take, I think we are seeing the cricket Australia's transition in T20 cricket that everyone is expecting to see now in Test cricket. You don't have the Horsemen bowling anymore. You don't have the Stark,
Mm.
the Hazel with the Cummins, right? For 12 overs of potentially at one point in time, right? Stark, Hazelwood, and Cummins in any format, that's daunting, right? So you don't have them in this format anymore. Obviously, it's a it's big shoes to fill, right? So for any opposition batter, you have to, take some relief in that, right? Now going back to the batters as well, you're having, you have great players. Don't get me wrong, you have Josh Inglis, you have Travis Head, but league is for T20 game in the IPL is a lot different than the national squad, right? And you do need to have that cohesive unit in the national side that maybe other teams like India have, as opposed to Australia at this point in time.
I don't know if Australia got their batting balance right in terms of their
Yeah.
selections. I think they had a team prepared for the flatter wickets in India and not so much the spin friendly wickets in Sri Lanka. If you look at the batting lineup, the one that played Sri Lanka, there is no one in that batting lineup that you could say could play an anchor innings. You go from 1 to 7. It's, as the TGC boys call them, the bomb squad. They're built. Great name, absolutely great name.
Hoynes, Maxwell, all the boys.
Yeah, they're all built to hit sixes,
Yeah.
right? And I think it warranted a Renshaw selection. It warranted a Steve Smith selection. You look at the game against Zimbabwe, the person that scored runs, even the game before that against Ireland, the batter that scored runs was Matt Renshaw because he has the game to nurture the strike, milk the bowling, score singles and twos, get the odd shot here and there. Not necessarily be a man that can score sixes, two, three sixes in a row, but able to play that anchor role. I think you needed someone like that on these Sri Lankan pitches, and I think they completely got their batting balance wrong. I think Matt Renshaw should have played the game against Sri Lanka. I think Steve Smith should have played a game or two because of his ability to bat long.
Yep. Oh, completely agrees. Australia kind of getting it wrong in both departments, unfortunately, and now they have a lot to think about, especially in this format. Looking ahead at sort of the two groups there, so you have India, South Africa, West Indies, and Zimbabwe in Group 1, followed by England, New Zealand, Pakistan, and Sri Lanka in Group 2. Very quickly, Tron, who's coming out? Who's staying in the groups?
All right. So group one, I got India coming out as one of the teams. I just don't see, and we'll talk more about this. I just don't see anyone beating India. They could be upsets, absolutely. But you asked me who's coming out of that group. I'm saying India for sure. Number two is where it gets interesting. So Zimbabwe has been playing like a super team right now, and they could pull off an upset. But let's say they play like we expect Zimbabwe to play. And if that's the case, I'm looking at South Africa and West Indies as a potential quarterfinal, meaning one of them is probably going to come out, and I'm going to put my money on West Indies just because I watched some videos that have gone viral online. The vibes in the West Indian team right now is on an all-time high. I want to be part of that team. And I feel that it speaks a lot because that unity, that togetherness looks like they're having a fun time playing for each other, playing with each other. And that goes a long way on the field, especially when you're in a crunch situation, when you're in a situation where someone needs to stand up, pressure situation, games on the line. That camaraderie goes a long way, and it's looking really good in the West Indian camp right now. And I have a feeling they're going to pull through and make it to the semis out of Group 1. For Group 2, it's all open. I don't even know where to go with Group 2. New Zealand's looking good. I think the addition of Jimmy Neesham was a great add. Finn Allen looks amazing at the top. Tim Seifert. Tim Seifert is looking every bit like Brendan McCullum of the past right now. So Rachin Ravindra found some form as well.
Yeah.
So I'm liking New Zealand there, and they've been in India for so long, given that they played a series before this against India. So I think they have an advantage there. I think they have the ability to come out of that group. And then number two, again, I think it's a free for all there. It's extremely tough to say who would come out. Sri Lanka is having a day here and there, hot and cold. Pakistan's been hot and cold, although they demolished all the teams not named India in their group easily. Um, and so you don't know what you're going to get with them. And then when it comes to England, once again, hot and cold. They almost dropped the ball against Nepal, but then they did well against the other teams, although they did lose against West Indies. So it's that group is completely open. It's hard to pick. New Zealand look like they're at the top there, but the other three, I don't know what to expect.
No, no, I think that's such a good shout. Such a good shout. Very similar for Group One for sure. Obviously, India, you know, favorites as well. It's their tournament to lose. I hate saying that, but it's their tournament to lose. Yeah, number two, interesting. I'm gonna stick with you. I said this as well. I like West Indies, and to your point, they're a team that runs on vibes, right? They always have been. And we kind of saw that when they lost the vibes is when they've had that disarray for those numerous years, especially in the T20 format, right? So the vibes are there. This format's basically created for them. Let's be real. So it's nice to see a good West Indies team in a T20 World Cup because, again, I think we're both believers in this. The T20 World Cup is incomplete without a competitive West Indies team. They just bring a lot to the tournament culture, history, power sixes, fast bowling, right? You love to see it. So yeah, for me, India and West Indies coming out of that group. South Africa, I'm gonna say it, they're not gonna be enough. It's not gonna be enough. Zimbabwe, I think they did their best, but now it's the big boys show. So I think they would have to sit this one out. Now for group two, again, very, very interesting, but I'm fairly confident in my call. I'm saying New Zealand and Sri Lanka are going through. I think Sri Lanka found some recent form. I think as well, there's a little bit of vibe energy going on as well. Coach is smiling, they got some legends in the camp as well. So I definitely think Sri Lanka, definitely a team to watch for. And I definitely think they're going to make it through to the next round.
All right, those are great picks. I didn't give that fourth pick because I just said I don't know who to pick. But if I were to gun to my head, you know what? I'll go with England. I'll go with
Okay.
England. I'll go with England just because they have individual players that can win a game, that can come off. I'm talking Harry Brook, I'm talking Sam Curran, I'm talking Jacob Bettel. They have players that can win games single-handedly, which I don't think Pakistan and Sri Lanka do. They do, but not as many. There's obviously Usman Tariq. There's Patum Nisanka, who's been an unbelievable touch the last couple of years. But other than that, like some of the other players on the team, you wouldn't necessarily say they're going to single-handedly win you a game, especially Babar Azam.
Yeah, but hey, one thing about Pakistan, I know we didn't mention them too much. They are hot and cold to the extremes. They could find recent form as well, right? Shaheen Shah Afridi could find that in swinger finally. So again, Super Eights are definitely for us to watch. First game is Saturday as well, so really, really quick turnaround. So it's great to see.
Yeah, yeah. I want to talk a little bit more on the West Indies team. I think it's important to say this. Their spinners have come alive, especially Kudikesh Moti. He looks really good. Akil Hussain hasn't had a stellar tournament so far, but he's been consistent. And if he finds if he finds the wicket column, I think there'll be a handful that attacks. The two all rounders that I believe are the top. Obviously, Hardik is up there, but the other two that underrated all rounders right now, one plays for West Indies, one plays for Zimbabwe. Jason Holder and Sikandar Raza are, in
Mm.
my opinion, the top all rounders in the world right now. Jason Holder has found another level to his game. He looks really good with the bat. He looks really good with the ball. Sikandar Raza has been amazing with ball, bat, and with his captaincy as well, leading from the front. It's been awesome to see, and yeah, it's going to be an exciting group. Super Eights, both groups. It's going to be some fun games. Yeah, can't wait. It's going to be epic.
Yeah, and just very quickly, you mentioned some three legends of the game. Jason Holder, Sikandar Raza, and Hardik Pandya. And is it not that these top all rounders in the format are also experienced players in the format? They've been playing for, I think, for example, I think I saw a recent highlight. Crazy. Pandya's been playing it from 2016. It's been 10 years. So again, Sikandar Raza, Jason Holder as well. They're experienced players of the game and they're still match winners. So it's always great to see that players who are identified early on are still leaders of this team in a certain capacity.
Yeah, and I have a feeling Zimbabwe's got the South Africa game circled. That's Battle of
Yes,
Africa right there.
the Battle of Africa,
Sure
yeah.
they wa I'm sure they wanna come up on top against the arch nemesis there, so it's gonna be exciting. I can't wait for the Super 8. Some may say the tournament has now begun, but that would be not doing justice to the associate teams. I think they had a fantastic tournament once again, and it's been an amazing T20 World Cup. I wanted to keep going. I wanted to get even more competitive, and I feel like it will. Until then, that stumps.